the NIMZO Indian defense. This is what I personally play with the black pieces. It's all about positional chess. You're about to learn everything there is to learn about the NIMZO Indian, the attacking plans, the opening moves, the middle game ideas, everything. In addition to that, I made a video explaining the full NIMZO Indian defense theory, which will be available on the membership section of YouTube. So if you're trying to learn the NIMZO Indian, watch this full video, apply what I teach, and watch your ratings go through the roof. Picking things off in the 500 region, today I'm going to be showing you guys the NIMZO Indian defense. It's all about positional chess. We play e6. The whole idea is if they play knight c3, we go bishop b4. In the future, we eliminate our bishop for the knight, yes, but then we close the position and then the knight becomes better than the bishop. But okay, he plays knight to f3. We're still gonna go bishop to b4, and this one is like a boga Indian defense. And whenever they go bishop to d2, we go queen to e7, hit the protect the bishop, because if he takes on b4 and we play queen takes, then we have a very nice position. But white is already playing some good moves. Here we take, and once they take back, our game plan is to play well. We always want to get working out the center of the board as quickly as possible. And the whole idea from here is to play moves like d6, knight d7, pawn e5, or d6, knight e7, pawn b6, bishop b7. So e3 was played. Let's go d6. We're always going to go d6 followed by knight d7, regardless of what they play. And notice what we're trying to do. We're just trying to ensure that we get all the pieces off the background as quickly as possible. Now, usually whenever they go bishop to d3, because the knight and the bishop is adjacent to each other, let's just play e5 before we play knight d7. Usually, they simply just need to take and then play something like e4, but it will weaken their d4 square. All right, so he took on e5. Let's just take. The threat is still to play pawn to e4 fork, and I'm assuming he's going to play e4, trying not to get forked himself. And then from here, it's just development. So he did play e4, and notice how weak his d4 square is, which is why I'm going to play this move, bishop to g4, and apply some pressure to the knight. Already, he can't castle, because if he castle, I take the knight and his king is exposed. But now I'm thinking about eliminating the knight, play knight c6, then knight d4, and I will have a very strong knight on the d4 square. So after a move like knight to c3, let's do it now. Let's not eliminate the knight as yet. Let's just develop first. Like, if he plays knight d5, then we may take, eliminate the knight, and I'm going to be left with an eternal knight on the d4 square. So yes, bishops are better than knights, but in the NIMZO Indian defense, we can get some very cool positions where the knights become better than the bishops. For example, here I'm going to give up my bishop for the knight. Again, what's the idea? Once I play knight d4, I'm already creating threats here. There's knight h5 to f4. But before we do that, let's ensure all the pieces are in the game. So let's go rook to d8. Let's put the rook on the same line as the queen, which means his bishop on d3 is pinned. All right, not a bad move. Rook to g1, getting control over the file. We'll have to be aware of any sacrificial ideas that may come, but there's no sacrifices here. Let's just go knight d4. Now we're threatening this triple fork on f3, so he has to play a good defensive move. And the other good thing about my position is, first of all, come on, Mr. United States. Like, he plays queen to g5. Yes, he's threatening a checkmate, but already this is a triple fork. Like, this is a royal fork, bro. You're about to lose your queen. And the queen no longer guards the bishop. So based on where he puts the king, he's also going to lose the bishop. So he moves the king out the way. We grab the queen. He could take back the knight, but then I'll take the bishop, which means he's going to be down by an entire queen. And the opponent resigns. More NIMZO Indian defense against 600 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 600, blessing you guys with some more NIMZO Indian, Boga Indian shenanigans. So sometimes they may not play c4 after d4. If they play any other move, still play e6. Now we see knight c3, which means bishop to b4 is NIMZO Indian. It's the same idea though, like we want to ensure that we get our king out the center as quickly as possible. And then it's a more positional game. So it's not going to be a case where, we're sacking this pawn to keep their king in the center now. Notice how we gave up the bishop for the knight. This is called the same-ish variation. So let's get the king up the center of the board first. And because we gave up the dark squared bishop for the knight, we put our pawns on dark squares. And then once our pawns are going to be on dark squares, our light squared bishop is going to be free to roam around the board. So let's play pawn to c5 here. And by the way, if he takes the pawn, queen a5 is already hitting both of his pawns. And we're winning back the pawns. His double pawns are just ugly. That's not going to be good for him. Now he plays d3, which is not a terrible idea. He's trying to put his bishop on this diagonal. His pawn on c4, though, this could be a massive weakness for him. But let's just continue with our Okay, there's also another idea that I want to show you guys with this move, queen c7. And especially at the lower level, this may work. Because notice what's happening. I'm putting my queen on the same line as his unprotected pawn, which is why he plays e3. But why would you play e3 if you already played g3? So does that mean he's not going to play bishop g2 anymore? That would mean he's going to be very weak on the light squares. But let's continue with the plan. Let's go d6. Plan is to play e5, put our pawns on dark squares, attack them on light squares. Now he plays d5, which is a decent move because if I takes, then you could say he got rid of his double pawn. So we don't necessarily have to immediately react to that move. It's best if I let him take, and then once I take, his pawn is under attack. How does this work? Let's just go rook to e8, put the rook on the same line as his king. So that way, in some cases, I could take. So bishop to g2 was now played, which means the whole idea of taking here doesn't work. I'm thinking about going queen a5, hitting this pawn. There's, okay, how does this work? I want to go, let's go knight d7, and then I'm going to try to target the pawn on c4 and c3. Now, what I'm showing you guys now, this is what positional chess is. We identify the weaknesses. Now we start to target the weaknesses. Now I'm attacking his pawn on d5 three times. He's only guarding it twice. I'm attacking the pawn on c4 once. He's not even guarding it. So he will already be losing material here. So I know that I teach you guys some Italian game and some Scotch gambit where you sack to gain time, but it's also, if you want to be good at chess, it's very important that you're good in all aspects of chess. So what I'm teaching you guys now is strategic chess. Now he moves the queen to guard this pawn, but two attackers, three defenders. Well, two defenders, three attackers. We're now just ahead by a clean pawn. Once he take, how I choose to take back the pawn may not be so important. He didn't guy didn't even try. He just moves the knight. I mean, maybe he wants me to move away my knight so he mates here or something. But why give me a second pawn? That is another pawn, Mr. USA. Now I'm just ahead by two pawns. And again, from a strategic perspective, you're ahead in material, simply trade the pieces off the board. That's all we're gonna do. Once he moved the queen, I'm thinking about playing d5. Depending on where he puts his queen, I may also put my bishop on this diagonal. And because his knight is on our half of the board, the plan from here is to simply get his knight out of our half. All right, so he moves his queen out the way. I'm already noticing that the queen and the rook is on the same line. So let's go bishop to f5, finishing our development with some ideas of going bishop to d3. And I also want to play h6 to chase the knight out. There's also d5. There's rook to d8 to get all the pieces in the game. This is what you guys are about to learn. Positional strategic chess. Ensure to hit that like button because you guys are in for a treat. Trying to hit 1,000 likes this video. Pawn to e4 technically does not attack the bishop, which means because if he takes the bishop, he loses the queen. I have three pieces attacking the pawn. He has two pieces guarding the pawn, which means we're now about to do a tactic called removing the guard. The main piece that is protecting the pawn right now is this knight. So once we hit him with h6, we're already attacking the knight. And if he moves the knight, that's a third pawn. Okay. Not too shabby. Offense is the best defense. He moves his queen. But here's what we're gonna do. First of all, I could take, and then after knight takes, I take. Because it's not like he's gonna sack the queen, but let's just pull the bishop back. Because now once we pull the bishop back, his knight is still under attack. Now he has to move the knight. He also has to put the knight on the edge of the board. Then I'm gonna be winning the free pawn. I could choose to never mind. I didn't move the knight. Well, that's a knight. Guess that's what happens at the 600 level. The guy just forgot about the knight. He forgot that I was attacking the knight. Now he's also about to lose this pawn. One, two, three. One, two, three. I'm still able to take because if he sack the rook, it's not like he's gonna sack the queen, you know? So I'm hitting this, applying some pressure here. The queen is guarding it. There's knight d5, which will apply more pressure to the weak pawn. But yeah, this is now just completely winning for black. Okay, now he pulls the queen back. I have no idea why he would even pull the queen back, but that's a free bishop, bro. Now we're ahead by 8 points. We're 19 moves into the NIMZO Indian. It's over. Yeah, now he plays a4. Yeah, we call those frustration moves. All right, how does this work? Let's just play bishop here. That's a nice square for a bishop. I'm assuming he's going to hit the knight, and now my plan is just to get my knights in the center, maybe even knight e4. But yeah, this is just game. Okay, he hits the knight, centralize the knight, takes, and I'm fine. I'm also hitting this pawn. Hits the knight again. Let's pull this knight back. Now he's getting very aggressive. You know, he's mad that he lost 8 points. But this is now under attack, followed by check. I don't really have too much interest in grabbing pawns now. I'm just trying to get to this guy's king because I'm already ahead by 8 points. All right. Another move that really doesn't do anything and also blunders more. He puts his rook on the only square where I'm able to take on c3, hits the queen, hit the rook, and that's another fork. He's losing more material. So he check, we take here, we hit the queen, we hit the rook. Once the queen move, we grab the rook. Puts the queen on c1, didn't even try to protect the rook, but he's losing the queen. That's a queen, bro. What the heck? He resigns. More NIMZO Indian against 700 players. Stick around. Your opponent is now 700. More NIMZO Indian coming your way. All right, pawn c4. We go e6. Knight f3 is Boga Indian. Knight c3 is NIMZO Indian. We still go bishop to b4 here. And we're usually always going to just castle on the next move. Like, this is one of those openings where you're able to get your king out the center in 4 moves, which means you're definitely not losing this by getting checkmated. A lot of persons will go bishop to d2. Just get your king out the center of the board. And depending on how they play, we're going to be going, okay, we're always going to have a pawn on d6, but the plan may be d6, e5, or just d6. For example, now that he plays g3, it's going to be d6, e5, because usually we play b6, bishop, b7, but we can't play b6 with him already fianchettoing his bishop. So the whole idea of playing d6 followed by e5 is, okay, what's this? Is this a tactic? Well, this is not a tactic, but another thing that you guys need to keep in mind is you're playing the NIMZO Indian defense, which means you castle your king way before theirs. So he's trying to open the center of the board, which should not be the right decision for him to make. Now I'm able to immediately hit him with rook to e1, putting my rook on the same line as his king. And now the goal is to target this pawn on e2. Remember to like the video, guys. Thanks for liking. Now he plays e3. Okay, I'm gonna make it even harder for him now. G3 followed by E3 is just too many light square weaknesses. Let's go bishop to G4, hit the queen, developing with tempo. I also don't care if he plays F3 because he's the one making unnecessary pawn moves. I'm moving pieces, he's moving pawns. All right, now he plays bishop E2. This is just so good for black. Then he took with the queen. Why not at least develop your bishop, bro? The United States is depending on you, bro. Look at this. We already have a removing the guard tactic. First of all, the only reason why this is not a free pawn is because the knight is guarding it. So all we need to do is eliminate the knight. This is called removing the guard. Now he has to take, then we take on d5. And just like that, 11 moves into the NIMZO Indian, and we're already winning. All right, he moves his queen out the way, finally prioritizing his development. I'm trying to play very actively here. Let's go queen to g5, guard the knight, thinking about some sacrificial ideas. If knight f3, I go queen f5, hit the knight, and keep my knight guarded. Ooh, he castled on the queen side. I was not expecting that. He castled on the queen side, and he also has 2 pieces attacking my knight. But I'm the one ahead in material, so I have no issues just trading the pieces off the board here. Okay, he took with the queen. Where do I develop the knight? A6 to c5 or c6 to e5? I'm gonna choose a6 to c5 because c6 to e5 could run in a fork. All right, he develops his knight, tempo on my queen. Let's just move the queen, keeping his knight under attack. I'm expecting him to go knight d4, centralizing the knight, and then I continue with my plan of playing knight c5. I'm ahead by a pawn in this position, so all the trades are good. In fact, I have a very nice idea here. Once he moves the knight, I mean, why would you put the knight on the edge of the board, bro? Knights belong in the center or pointing towards the center. And I'm talking with my knight on the edge of the board. But don't worry, my knight will be off the edge of the board very soon. Let's go rook to e5. I'm playing this move because the queen and the rook is on the same line. So I'm trying to do a rook lift with rook to c5, pinning the queen to the king. And he allowed it. He attacks the rook, which means he's kind of forcing me to play rook to c5. Just like that, we're winning the guy's queen. Okay, he took. Remember, I told you guys that I was going to get my knight off the edge of the board. Nobody believed me. Rook to e8 is coming next, just getting all my pieces active. All right, rook d2 doesn't do much. Let's swing the last piece in the game. I'm also attacking his unprotected pawn, which he guarded. Now I go here, hit the rook. Now I'm planning on playing moves like queen c5, queen a5, maybe queen a5, because based on where he puts his rook, this rook may be unprotected. For example, rook c2, and then queen a5 hits both the unprotected rook and the unprotected pawn. Or this square. Still queen a5. All my pieces are active, by the way. I'm attacking this pawn. Maybe he's going to protect the pawn and leave his rook hanging. I've seen that before. But let's assume that he's going to play the best move. We simply take on, which is what he did. We take the free pawn, and now I'm trying to set up for some checkmates. This guy offering a draw. Have some respect, bro. He resigns. More NIMZO India against 800 level players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 800. More NIMZO Indian coming your way. So pawn c4, we go e6. Usually the next move is to play bishop b4 if they move one of the knights. So once they use this knight, we go bishop b4, pin the knight. This is the NIMZO Indian defense. And let's see how he plays from here. Okay, we're going to see bishop to d2 a lot. After this move, just castle the king. In fact, always castle the king on the next move. Now we see g3. Now, this is not a bad move. Usually, fianchetting the bishop against the NIMZO Indian is it's one of the best ways to play. But let's just go d6 here. The whole strategic idea is to put our pawns on dark squares, knowing that eventually we're going to be giving up this bishop for this knight. Okay, bro, like, usually you don't play g3 and e3. Because now his light squares are too weak. Let's continue with the plan. Pawn e5. A3. Guys playing some moves. All right. Usually when they play a3, you just give up the bishop for the knight. Pulling the bishop back traps the bishop, so let's not talk too much about that. And then once he takes, there's not a lot of pressure on e5. So let's go queen to e7 first, protecting e5. I'm considering taking here, but after bishop takes, he has a very strong bishop. Now his bishop is on this very nice diagonal. Let's just go pawn c6, just ensure that that bishop is not too strong. And bishop to g4, knight d7, and my whole development is going to be complete. So he develops his knight. I develop, yeah, I could do it. I develop the bishop because the queen no longer guards e5, but I'm also attacking c4. So if he takes on e5 twice, I take on c4, I hit the bishop, and I have a nice position. Otherwise, knight d7, finish my entire development in 10 moves, and I'm protecting the pawn. Right. So he saw that I was attacking the pawn and decided to protect it. But now I go knight d7, my development is complete, and I'm protecting my pawn. He got his king out the center. Now, every piece of mine is active except my rooks. There are currently no open file, but I'm just going to go rook to d8. Like, I mean, I'm putting the rook on the same line as the queen. If he takes, then he's opening the d file. By the way, guys, you're definitely in for a treat. So if you haven't liked the video as yet, consider hitting that like button. I'm trying my best to get up. I'm trying my best to get 1,000 likes on this video. All right, so he moves the queen. Let's get the rook in the game. I mean, he's playing very well for 800. You know, he's not blundering all his pieces. All right, now I need to improve my position just a bit more. For example, this bishop, let's go bishop to g4, trying to tickle his king side a bit, you know? Let him push some of those pawns. Let him weaken the king. And I'm also pointing my bishop towards his knight, so that may scare him a bit. The whole idea, though, is to pull the bishop back, eventually to g6, and hit the queen. Here, guy's not bulging. It's crazy. All right, how does this work? All right, now I'm going to play this move e4. gaining some space in the center. And I also want to play d5, which means me moving my rooks towards the center didn't really help too much. But if I'm able to play d5, then I was actually just about to play queen e6 because I was afraid of h3. And then I was like, okay, he's not going to play h3, but he did. And if I pull the bishop, do I go bishop f3, takes, knight here, g5, knight here, queen here? Let's try that. So what I'm basically doing is I'm trying to trade the light squared bishops off the board. Once I'm able to trade the light squared bishop off the board, which he did trade, now the light squares around this king is going to be a bit weak. f4 is the only good square for his knight, and once he puts the knight here, I'm going to hit him with g5. Remember to not push pawns on the side that your king is on, guys, unless you're attacking, and you need to be aware of the consequences if your attack does not work. Well, pulling the knight back to c1 was rather passive. Let's jump into e4 first. I don't want it to be too obvious that I'm trying to get my queen to the h3 square, so let's continue to improve other aspects of the position, and then I'm going to hit him with queen to e4 when it really works. So queen here, knight here, then he has to play h5. So maybe if I play h5 first, then once I go queen e6, then he's going to be in trouble. Okay, so knight comes back in the game. Maybe he wants to put the knight back on f4. Who knows? All right, if I go here, he's going to play here. He's going to hit the queen and guard the pawn. So has to be g5. So I'm going to go g5, which prevents knight f4. But now I'm not able to play knight g5 though. And this is like advanced level drawback principle mistake. Queen e6, king h2, I have nothing. Maybe I can attack it and hope he doesn't see it, but you always want to assume that your opponent will play the best move. Okay, bishop all the way back to a1. What is this knight doing? Not seeing. Um, Pawn to g4, he plays pawn to h4. Let's just go d5. d5 weakens the e5 square. But I should be able to take, maybe play maybe I shouldn't have played d5. I just don't want him to be able to play d5 and activate his dark squared bishop because his dark squared bishop isn't really doing anything. And I'm also attacking this unprotected pawn. Like, he's not playing badly, but he's playing slowly. A lot of you guys get the chance to play and you play very well, but you play very slow. You have to remember that speed is also a part of chess. Doesn't mean that you should play fast and don't think, but you can't just, I don't know. I mean, if you I don't know, let's grab the pawn. It's the only free pawn that I got, and the guy's only 800, so he is playing some chess. Definitely repping North Korea very well. Mm. That was a nice move, bro. That was the only move that I didn't want this guy to play. Because if I takes pawn takes and his bishop is, there's no way on earth I'm taking that knight. Remember, to take is a mistake, guys. Let's go b6, protect my pawn. If he takes this knight, I'm fine. This is my active knight. This is the knight that he needs to take. And if he takes with the knight, still don't want to take with the pawn because it may help him to improve his bishop. So I'm just going to take with the rook. Yeah, let's just take with the rook. Now my pawn on f3 seems to be very weak. Come on, bro. First of all, why are you even trying to trade the queens and you're the one who's down in material? Trading the queens is winning here, guys. The only reason why I'm not trading the queen is because he's 800 and I think I'm able to like swindle him and checkmate him with my queen. But if anybody else was playing this and you're ahead by a pawn and your opponent offers a queen trade, it's very good for you. Plus, his queen is also not active. Rook c3. Now he's trying to speed up because his time is running out. I think I have a plan. Let's go knight to f8. I want to be able to play. Here's the plan. Here's the plan. Queen h3, king h2, pawn g4, pawn h4, knight g6, sacrifice on h4. This is what he probably wants to do. Queen e6, king h2, pawn g4, pawn h4, queen h6. Okay, let's go. Queen h6, king h2. Oh my god, guys. This game is going to end in a brilliancy. I just saw something. Can I sack my queen? Boom. This is me doing a rook lift, guys. I'm preparing to do something. Tactics alert. Look at this. How do we find the best move? Forcing moves on the opponent's half of the board. Checks, captures, and threats. Sacrifice the queen. There is no way this is not a brilliant move. Because once the king takes, the king can't go here due to the rook. The king can't go here due to my pawn. which means that's just a checkmate. More NIMZO Indian defense against 900 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 900, blessing you guys with some more NIMZO Indian defense. Pawn e6. And after knight c3, we go bishop to b4. And usually the next move is just a cast. Like, if they don't attack your bishop, just get the king out the center. All right, pawn to e3. So whenever they play it like this, you can also play this move b6, bishop b7. A pawn is always going to go to d6, and in some cases you could go e5 followed by e4 and then try to fork. But in other cases, you could try to put a knight on e4 and attack their king side. So bishop to d2. Let's go d6 first. The goal is to go knight d7. Only when they attack your bishop, that's when you give up the bishop for the knight. All right, he took. Let's jump in with the knight. Our development is almost complete, guys. And there's two ways to do this. It's two completely different plans. You could go queen e7, pawn e5. You guys are going to see me doing this a lot. Or I like to do this when they fianchetted the bishop, though. Like if the bishop is not fianchetted, I like to play knight to e4. And now I'm playing it like a Dutch defense. All right, pushing a pawn on your king side like that really didn't do anything. Now we play f5, and it's a very simple plan from here. The purpose of f5 is to keep the knight safe, but I'm also trying to play moves like rook f6, rook g6, and put my rook on the same line as his king. All right, he immediately pulls the knight out the way. He's trying to get rid of my knight. Uh, think I have to move the knight. Otherwise, I'm going to have to take with the pawn and my bishop is going to be bad. Since I have to take something, let's just take the bishop and then play rook to f6. Is g2 pawn is what I'm trying to target now. Rook to g6 or rook to h6 could be my plan. But the whole idea from here is just to start an attack on his king. All right, pawn to e4 is nice. Okay, maybe I should have took the knight because I shouldn't give him control over e4. But let's just continue with rook to g6. He's not able to take due to losing his g pawn. So that is definitely something. And if he moves the knight, he still loses the pawn. So he needs to use the queen to apply more defense to his e4 pawn. And then queen to g5 is also annoying, just threatening some checkmates. And then there's also knight f6, which applies pressure to the e pawn. And the moment he moves the e pawn, he could be losing the game. All right, he's defending. He is defending. Let's hit him with queen to g5, threatening mate. Remember we spoke about focal points, guys. Any pawn or square around the opponent's king, that's what we're going to be attacking. I'm expecting queen f3, pawn g3. Pawn g3 is bad, pushing pawns on his king side. But if queen f3, knight f6, his queen is going to be pinned to my bishop. So, no, drawback. Drawback. We talk about the drawback principle. Guys, you notice how it's naturally that's just how your brain works. You notice how I thought queen f3 was a move. But because there's another side of my brain that thinks about drawback, the moment you move the queen, left the knight unprotected. Now we just take the knight and we're winning the game. I tell you guys, beginners make level 1 blunders, which is just hanging pieces. Someone create a threat, they didn't even see the threat. Strong players make level 3 blunders, like tactical blunders. But regular players make drawback mistakes because they only think about what their piece is about to do. They don't think about what they're no longer going to be doing. And if you understand this, it eliminates so much of your blunders and it will help you to spot the opponent's blunders. All right, he swing the rook in the game. I'll do the same. Let's put the rook on the same line as his queen, which means I'm threatening to take on e4, and his queen is going to be under attack twice. Okay. He's just trying to trade the queens off the board. But I'm definitely going to trade. I mean, I'm ahead by an entire piece. All right, so I could take bishop takes. That's more trades. But let's go knight to f6 and apply even more pressure to e4. Because if he touches the e pawn, he loses the g pawn. He did touch the e pawn. Now we have two pieces targeting his g2 pawn. Now we take on g2, and he's forced to put the king on f1, by the way. It wouldn't be wise to put the king on the same line as the bishop. Now if I takes bishop takes, I don't care though, because if he plays bishop takes, it's putting my rook on the same line as his king. Yeah, so he did take. How does this work? Now I play knight h5, discovered attack on the unprotected bishop. If he moves the bishop, we take a free pawn. I mean, he's able to check though. So once he check, I have to move the king, and then his pawn is still gonna be under attack. E5, tricky move. Because now my bishop is not guarding the rook. So I need to be careful. All right, if I go here, king here traps the rook. If I take the bishop, I lose the rook. So maybe just protect the rook. Yeah, let's just protect the rook. Let's just protect the rook. If he goes here, I take. Oh, it's weird because he's able to. Oh, all right. Check. If I take, he takes. So let's move the rook out the way. It's weird. If he plays rook to f3 hits the knight, then okay, maybe I'm able to just take the bishop and I'm winning material. But in some cases, all he needs to do is sack the rook for the knight and then take my rook. But it doesn't work here, unfortunately, because once I take here, I just took a bishop, and if he takes my rook, I take his rook. So we're basically just trading pieces off the board. And if he takes, then I take his rook with even my bishop, and I'm chilling. So it's best if he just take on f8, and then I take. Oh no, no, no! Ah no, that was wrong because my rook. So that was wrong. Right, guys, that was wrong because now I'm only ahead by 1 point. That was miscalculation. The good thing is a knight and a bishop is better than a rook. So, but now it's gonna take a lot of endgame technique to win this. Notice what I'm doing. I'm trying to get my king in the game, trying to prevent his rook from entering in my position, and now I'm just trying to target his weak pawn. I'm gonna play this move g5 so that way if he plays f4, I take on f4. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm trying to play knight g6 to e5 or knight d7 to e5 and target this weak pawn. So king attacks the pawn. Let's guard the pawn. Is he able to go king here? Because if I go, oh my god, I'm gonna lose to a 900. If he, okay, he didn't. Thank God. Let's just take. And then after king here, I don't want him to play king here. That's the thing. So if I check, he goes here. All right, let's apply some pressure to his weak pawns. Rook to e4, knight to g6. Oh, check. Now he's gonna go here and take the pawn. But once I play knight e5, I'm taking this pawn. So now we go here. We have two pieces attacking this pawn. King takes, and then knight takes. It's weird. I shouldn't have allowed. I shouldn't have allowed all of this, obviously. I'm hitting this pawn, but if I take rook here and I'm forked. All right, he moves the pawn. Now we need to target this pawn. Maybe hit the rook. Now let's just go back. f4, maybe I check and then go here. He still has to be careful. Like, I mean, there's a lot of room for him to blunder. Like he could fall for a fork if he plays king h5, and that would be very nice. He has to play king to g5. But either way, the plan was to play knight f6, hit the rook, hit the pawn. So I'm just choosing to go here so that way I give him a chance to blunder, but he's not blundering. Let's hit the rook, hit the pawn. If he plays rook e6, I grab the pawn. So maybe he's gonna go rook d4. Yeah, that is a pawn. Now I'm hitting the rook and I'm hitting this pawn. All his pawns are now about to be captured. He needs to play rook h6 with the idea of playing rook h7 so that way he's able to check and take this pawn. Okay, he didn't. So that is another free pawn. And I'm attacking this pawn. And now the pass pawns are going to be rolling up the board. That is just a check. Doesn't do anything. Now this is under attack. If he checks, I just move again. This is the only move that he should not play. But he won't. Like, I'm threatening a fork, but naturally he must move one of his pieces. All right. Do we take? Nah, let's just roll the pawns up the board. Pass pawns were meant to be pushed. The good thing about my position is if it comes to a case where I need to sack, then I'm just going to sack the knight and then roll this pawn up the board. So yeah, he's definitely pushing his pawn. All right, let's see. Check the king. I'm only going to sack if I have to sack. So king moves. No, because if I pull the bishop back, he goes here. I go here, takes, and he wins. All right, maybe I have to sack. Very unfortunate. The thing is, I just have too many pawns. That's the thing. So I'm only ahead by 1 point, but once the pawns start rolling up the board, he's just not going to be able to catch them. His pawn is also on a light square. So bishop c2 hits the pawn. And if he has to play something like rook a3 just to not lose the pawn, it's bad. His king is also misplaced because his king needs to be around here. That's gonna take him too long. And now I'm just rolling the pawn all the way up the board. Like literally, I'm gonna push, 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 and I'm gonna win his rook. So he hits the bishop, now I push. And the next move is to push. Because if he takes the bishop, I queen. And even if he does anything else, I'm still gonna push, push. Because the bishop guards the queening square. Yeah, this game was definitely a roller coaster. Probably my accuracy is 50%. Who knows? Yeah, and that was also well, now I push with check. If he moves the king, I queen. He took, now I queen, and position is still completely winning. Now I'm just trying to fork. Let's try to fork his king and his rook. I mean, I can also sack my queen for the rook, run to the pawns, and simply queen. All right, that's what we want to see. It's easy to fork when his rook and his king is separated from each other. The goal is to get my queen to e5 with a check. So for example, here, now I check, king has to move, grab the rook, and the opponent resigns. More NIMZO Indian against 1,000 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1,000. More NIMZO Indian coming your way. C4, we go e6. Knight f3, we go Boga. Knight c3, we go NIMZO. Same bishop move. Look at this. He played bishop to d2, so that way I'm just not able to put the bishop here. Now, if they play any other move, then you don't really want to put the bishop there, obviously. So now we play b6, followed by bishop to b7. And this is now similar to what is called the Queen's Indian defense. Any opening where you develop your knight to f6 to face d4, then they call it Indian defense. Not sure why. Maybe the Indians started to play it first. But let's just develop the bishop and get the king out the center of the board. Usually when you play like this, this is usually what the GMs play in like serious tournaments. So castle, now we play d6. The plan is to play knight d7. And as you guys will see, I will have all my minor pieces developed and my king castled in only 8 moves. So he develops his knight, I develop my knight. If he plays queen c2, it took him 8 moves to finish his entire development. So that is crazy. And connect his rooks. I didn't connect my rook. So let's see what he's going to play. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. Nigeria is counting on you, bro. Why would you play e4? It's like I have 2 pieces covering that square. You only have the knight guarding that square. That's just a free pawn, bro. Now, if he takes, I take free pawn. And from here, you guys know what the goal is. It doesn't really matter. Even if you're ahead by half a pawn. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. If you're ahead by half a pawn, then maybe it means you just have a slight advantage and it doesn't mean that you have to trade. But he hits the bishop. Let's just guard it. Okay, now the queen is applying more pressure to the bishop. Remember what I promised you guys? You're now learning positional chess. Positional chess is about how do I improve my current position? What piece do I have? How can I improve it? For example, we know that we need to connect to our rooks. So I'm going to play queen c8. Why queen c8? What does that even do? The plan is to play queen b7. Now my queen is going to be even more active, applying pressure to this diagonal. Right, so he got his rook in the game. Let's continue with the plan. Queen b7. My rooks are now connected. This is what you guys need to be seeing. How do you know if you played a good opening? When I ask these questions, I want you guys to answer them before I give the answer. And then you compare your answer to my answer. And the answer is if your king and your 2 rooks are the only come, wait. Oh, he's trying to trick me. Guy's trying to trick me. Mine, oh, maybe not though. I mean, it's an honest attacking move because if I take the knight no longer guards the bishop and I lose the bishop, but he's also threatening to play g5, hit the knight, which is forcing away one of the main defenders. So that's not a bad move at all. And if I play h6, he's probably still gonna play g5. So that's not a bad move, bro. Uh how does this work? Okay, I'm still gonna play h6. If he plays g5, I take, and maybe I'm gonna play d5 and just add more support to my bishop. Okay, so he still played g5. Let's just take. Now I'm expecting bishop takes, which hits the knight, get rid of the knight, win the bishop. Very good move. Now I'm gonna play d5 though. Just add some extra support to my bishop. If he takes, I go bishop takes, hit this pawn, and my knight could also jump in. But instead, he plays c5. Not terrible. But once I take, my queen gets this open file. And I'm assuming he's gonna take back, right? Because yeah, he has to take back. Okay, now what piece do I have that is not doing anything? My rooks, which is why I'm gonna hit him with rook to b8 because rooks needs files. And okay, I'm still thinking about some queen to b5, trading the pieces off the board. But because he's 1000, I'm sure I can win his queen instead of trading the queens. So pawn to b3. I'm hitting the pawn once, he's guarding it once. So queen to b4 hits the pawn twice, and he's only guarding it once. All right, he's moving his knight out the way. It doesn't help his position. He didn't even try to defend this pawn. Or maybe what's his idea is okay, first I think I have to take. I think the idea is once I take, the bishop no longer guards my knight, and then after he takes, he's doubling up the pawns in front of my king. And that is not a bad idea. All right, let me just protect the bishop. Maybe I'm just gonna move my knight to e4, trade the bishops off the board. He didn't. He pulled his bishop back. Okay. Now I go queen here. Still applying pressure to the pawn twice, but now I'm also attacking this unprotected pawn. All right, he moves the bishop, guard the pawn. I have one, two attackers. He has one, two defenders. So knight e4, I now have one, two, three attackers versus his two defenders. So I'm still trying to win that pawn on c5. Usually, I was just about to say that whenever you're attacking a weakness, you want to fix the weakness. Fixing the weakness means prevent it from moving. Because notice how I was trying to attack the pawn and then he just moves the pawn forward. Okay, that's fine though. Let's just go bishop to f6. That's a nice diagonal for a bishop. Pawn to d4 in some lines could be good. His pawn on c6 is still weak. The bishop is applying pressure to a7, so I may just roll the pawn all the way up to a4. Okay, rook c2, not sure why. Maybe he thinks I wanted this. There's knight c3, which hits the queen, and then pawn d4, which hits the bishop. Because his queen and his rook is adjacent to each other, I'm gonna go rook to. Okay, maybe I should have used the e rook because the b rook was already doing something. Simple plan though. Pawn d4 hits the bishop. Pawn d3 forks the queen and the rook. He saw all of that and then played queen g4. All right, where to put this knight? Okay, I don't have to move the knight. Now let's just play a5. Idea is to play a4 and just open some line. Okay, bishop to h6. That's what he's going for. The thing about this move though is my bishop just already covers the score, bro. So you putting your bishop on a6 actually doesn't do anything. Rook takes, I need to be looking out for. Still doesn't do anything. Let's continue with the plan, trying to open some lines. Remember again, guys, planning, pawns, pawn breaks. That's how you plan in chess. Just look on your pawns. I mean, might as well you had took the pawn, bro, because now that's just a free pawn. And I'm at, oh, the rook is not unprotected. So, okay, I thought he was able to, I think he is able to play f3, because then I can't move the knight due to the pin. If f3, I'm thinking about checking, but then he blocks with the bishop. My knight and my queen is going to be under attack. I think I just messed up there. But he's not going to find f3. The whole Nigeria is depending on this guy to find f3. Let's see if he's going to find it. He didn't. He also moved the rook, which means he thought the rook was under attack. But remember, guys, if you want to be good at chess, it's not just about, ooh, I'm good at spotting tactics. That's not what you should tell people. You should tell people that you're good at spotting weaknesses. Because if you're good at spotting weaknesses, then the tactics will flow. In this position, the king is weak because it's exposed. The rook is weak because it's unprotected. Whenever you have more than one weaknesses, that's how tactics will come. And that's why I'm going to hit him with queen to b1 check. Hit the king and the unprotected rook. Once there's more than one weaknesses in a position, that's when the tactic starts coming in. Okay, he pulls the rook back. Now we take, we're now ahead by 7 points, and I'm applying pressure to his f2 pawn twice. Yeah, this is not just lost, and the guy only has a minute on his clock. All right, pulls the bishop back to protect this pawn. Pawn d4 hits the bishop. My queen is still guarding my knight, so I'm fine. So pawn d4, you could say this is me trying a removing the guard tactic. The bishop guards the pawn. I'm trying to eliminate the bishop. If I'm able to force the bishop to move, I win the pawn on f2. which is why, okay, I'm trying to remove the guard, and he hits me without removing the guard. Now, if I move my queen, I lose my knight. But his bishop is under attack. Let's see if we can be fancy. Take, sack the queen, check. King has to go here, and I have nothing. Yeah, let's just take. If he takes my knight, I take his bishop, I'm fine. So he took. Now we take here. And okay, he took with the queen. I'm ahead by 7 points. I mean, the goal is to trade, right? But yeah, let's just trade. He also does not have any time on the clock. And I'm also going to roll my pass pawn up the board. So in the next few moves, I will get my queen back on the board. Take, queen takes. Let's take. Now we start rolling the pawns up the board. He moves the rook. Pass pawns must be pushed. Pass pawns must be pushed. That is a rook. He's trying to play fast because the time is running out, but it happens, bro. Now I check. He has to block with the knight, and now he's pre-moving. But it's just game. With that being said, more NIMZO Indian defense against 1100 rated players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1100. Let's play some more NIMZO Indian defense. So after c4, we play e6, and sometimes they play other moves. I still play e6. Whenever you see knight f3, it's boga Indian defense. We're putting the bishop on b4, regardless of what they do. And after the bishop goes to d2, we play queen e7. Now, this is one of the lines that I'm going to be going more in depth in when I'm explaining the theoretical video in the membership section of YouTube. So if you're not yet a member, consider joining the membership. I think it costs like $2 or $3. Okay, once they play a3, that's when we take on d2. And remember what the plan is here, guys. We're not going to be doing a plan to put our pawns on dark squares. But first, let's simply get the king out the center of the board. Okay, he develops the knight. Now we play d6. Plan is to play e5. And if he puts the bishop on d3, pawn e4 would be a very funny fork. Okay, he took. Let's just take back. Now we have the d file. And oh my god, he still put the bishop on d3. Guys, remember, when there are two pieces adjacent to each other on the same color, you have to be looking out for pawn forks. Come on, Jerry. Australia is counting on you, bro. Now the game is over. Like, it doesn't matter what he does. I'm going to win material. Because even though he's attacking twice, I'm also defending twice. Okay, he took with the knight. Now we take, and I'm hitting the queen. He puts the queen on c2, and I have to be careful where I put the knight because he's lining up a battery towards h7. But once I pull the knight back to f6, I'm guarding h7, and from here it's just regular development. And because I'm ahead in material, my goal is to trade pieces. Okay, he plays h3. Guess he doesn't want bishop g4 to be a move. Let's just develop normally. B4, I mean, usually I play A5 to prevent them from playing B4, but because I'm ahead in material, I'm just chilling here. I'm just looking for all the ways in which I could trade some pieces off the board. For example, okay, he wants to play G5, but knight E5 hits the bishop and the knight. And if he takes and I play queen takes, he's not able to play G5 because my queen covers the G5 square. So he took, let's take back. His king is also just not safe in the center. So he decides to castle it. F4, I'm not afraid of. G5, I have to be on the lookout for. But right now, it doesn't do anything. So let's just finish our development. Okay. Now I know exactly what he wants to play. He wants to play f4, which is why he protected this pawn. And then once he plays f4, he may play f5 and hit my bishop. And that's why I'm going to go rook to d8 and just apply some pressure to his bishop. So that way, if he plays f4, I move my queen and I'm automatically attacking his bishop. So f4, we go here, which means even if he plays g5 or f5, I take the bishop. So I'm still gaining time on his bishop, which means he has to either move the bishop or protect the bishop. Then I can defend against one of these threats. Okay, he chose to defend the bishop. He's also putting his rook on the same line. Okay, that was such a nice move. Because I have to move my queen away, and I have to worry about pawn to g5. Let's just go queen c5 though, hit the unprotected pawn since I have to move. And if he plays g5, hit the knight, I take on e3 first, which is why he defended e3. So he's really seeing a lot of moves. Once he plays g5, I'm losing the h-pawn. So might as well I just play g6, not to lose the pawn. Now if he plays g5, I move the knight and I'm safe. And if he plays f5, I'm not sure. Because after the trade, there's some sacrificial ideas. Let's think about it. Let's say I play bishop back, right? He takes, I takes, bishop sack. I takes, queen takes, king over. Oh, I'm gonna be able to play knight to eight 7 in the end, but it's kind of risky to be honest. That is kind of risky. Think it's best if I just take. No, I am exposing my king, but if he takes with the pawn, at least the bishop is not going to be as active. All he's going to have is a check. And then once he check, I move the king and I should be safe. So let's pull the bishop back. Queen to c3 is also an idea. I mean, the guy's down by a piece, but he's really attacking us. So if he checks, I move. Queen c3 hits the knight. Maybe just take here first and then pull the queen back. Okay, queen check. Let's move out the way. Rook to g1 threatens a checkmate, which I think the queen was way more aggressive on c3 because even if he plays rook g1, I mean, I'm definitely grabbing the free pawn. Okay, queen g5. That move makes sense because he hits the pawn, guards this pawn, which means after rook g1, he's not losing the pawn. But now I have queen to e5, guarding the knight. His light squared bishop is still not doing anything. Rook to g8 hits the queen. And yeah, there's actually no attack here. Now I'm just chilling. 8-4. He's trying to get the pawn all the way down here, then checkmate. But my f rook isn't doing anything. So once I go rook g8 hits the queen, now my f rook is active. And once the queen moves away, I may also win this pawn. Not sure if I want that pawn though, but I mean, I do need to trade the pieces off the board. Okay, I think I have a better way to do it. I'm going to go knight g4 first, hit the queen, and then I'm now thinking of playing knight f2, hit the rook and the bishop. And then after the rook takes, then I take on f5, which hits the rook again. So the queen moves out the way. I'm sure he wants to push this pawn. Okay, that's not even going to be possible. So let's continue with the plan. Ooh, queen takes. Am I afraid of queen takes? Knight f2 hits the rook. Rook d2. Knight takes d3 check. Rook takes d3. Queen takes f5. And then just trade the pieces off the board. And remember, that's the whole idea, guys. You're ahead in material, just trade. It's way more easier and it's a lot less stress. So he moves the rook, we take, rook takes, and then instead of going bishop takes, because in the end he's gonna be able to take here. So we play queen takes. Now I'm hitting the queen and the rook. All right, so he's obviously not trying to trade. I can always go rook g2, force him to take, and then I take, and then I'm attacking this, and he has no checks. Uh Rook d2, maybe he sacked the rook though. Yeah. Yeah, let's not do that. Let's just go bishop c6, protecting the square, threatening the rook. More trades, by the way. If he takes here, I take here, and I'm fine. Okay, he's trading. Let's just take back. Now he's putting his rook on this file. So maybe he's trying to get a queen here. If he's able to get a queen here, then it's mate. But remember the plan, guys. Wait, queen here, he goes here, check, king over, and he's fine. Let's trade some more pieces. Let's go rook to g8. Like I don't want any little tricks because he's playing very well after losing the piece. Don't want to find out how this guy would have played if he didn't lose the piece. But let's just move the queen, guard the pawn. Still trying to play rook to g2, hit the queen. If he moves away the queen, then I win this pawn, so that's good. My king is vulnerable on this diagonal, but there's no way for the queen to check. No, there's a way for the queen to check. All right, so okay, maybe I need to play f6. Just assuming he wants to check. And if he plays something like queen to, let's say queen d4, I just protect the pawn. Maybe even rook f8, but rook f8 is kind of an uncomfortable move. Maybe just queen e5. Still trying to trade. Ooh, tactics alert, tactics alert. Look what the guy did. He puts the queen and the rook on the same line, knowing that I have a light squared bishop on the board. You're fucked, bro. Hit him with bishop e4, hit the queen and the rook. This wins. Okay. I was about to say it wins an entire rook, but it doesn't. Yeah. He's able to sack. Um, let's just take. And then once he takes, now I'm just trying to set up some little checkmate or ways to force the queens off the board. Let's not rush though. Let's go c6, protect the pawn. This check didn't really do much. He was just going to put the king here. Maybe check here though, but let's not rush. I'm just completely winning here. No need to rush. Once I keep my queen on this diagonal, he has no way to check my king. Okay, g5 doesn't do much still. Let's go here. I'm trying to check and use my queen to attack his queen. Once I trade the queens off the board, then it's a wraps. All right. King moves to c2. The king and the queen is now on the same line. Now let's just go queen to f5, getting the queens off the board, and there's just nothing that white could do here. Check. Think I'm also winning the queen because the king is the main defender of the queen. So once I check him here, the king now has to move. I take the queen and it's game. And he resigns. More NIMZO Indian against 1200 level players. Stick around. Your opponent is now 1200. Playing some more NIMZO Indian defense. It's 1299, by the way. Basically 1300. But let's see. We're going Bishop B4 next if he develops one of the knights. So Bishop B4, this is the Boga Indian defense. I'm explaining the entire theory in my membership only video. So if you're not yet a part of the member, consider supporting the channel by joining the membership. You'll get access to all my videos explaining the theory, and the cost is about $2 and some cents. Okay, queen to b3. Now he has two pieces attacking my bishop. Now, how I like to respond to these types of moves, okay, it's not c5 actually, because if I play c5, he takes. Okay, let's just take on d2 since my bishop is under attack and get the king out the center of the board. I don't want to do anything too complex and then confuse myself. All right, so he took with the knight. Now we go d6. Plan is to play e5. Probably should have castled the king first, but it really does not matter. Okay, maybe I shouldn't castle the king first because why did this guy even check my king? Like, what does he think he gets from checking the king? Because, okay, I could go c6 and force him to move the queen, but let's just go knight d7. The plan was to put the knight on d7 anyways, and then I'm going to castle and play e5. Now he plays d5. He's asking to lose some material. That's what he's asking to do because I'm already attacking the pawn twice. He's guarding it twice, but the queen is like one of the main defenders. So let's hit him with a6. And naturally, we do not want pieces on our half of the board. This is called the principle of neutralization, which is just forcing the queen out of our half, but he kept the queen on our half, trying to guard the pawn. But now I hit him with this move, b6. Now he really needs to think about what he's doing with that queen. He pulls the queen back to c3. Not a bad move, by the way, because, okay, I'm still definitely going to take the pawn. But, oh, if he takes and I play knight takes at the queen, then he takes on g7. So maybe I should have castled. And he's also attacking my pawn on c7. Okay, let's go knight c5 just to guard the pawn. Oh my god, am I blundering the whole game away? What am I doing? Pawn b4, queen c6 wins the game, right? Okay, if he plays pawn b4, then I may have to take on d5. Not because I want to, but kind of have to. But he didn't do it. So let's just develop the bishop. This is why I like to castle first. Like, this is going to be the only NIMZO Indian video that you watch where I do all of this and I do not castle first. It's the only one. But he castled the king. We have two pieces attacking d5. Let's just take on d5, hit the queen. I'm also targeting a2, but I think it's about time I get my king out the center. Okay, he moves the queen. I mean, that is a pawn, though. Do I get greedy and take a pawn, or do I just get my king out the center? I mean, it's a pawn, though. That's the thing. All right, that's a pawn, bro. I'm taking the pawn. My king is safe. Oh my God. What if he could have played b4 and then queen a5 fork? It's not possible, though. But now that he plays e3, now we get the king out the center. I'm now ahead by 2 pawns. Whoa. Again, guys, do not pay attention to the flag. We do not claim this guy. Guy just played bishop to d3. Putting the bishop on d3, that's just a free bishop. All right, he moves the king, and that is not a free pawn because the queen guards it. I'm trying to think about ways to remove his queen from guarding the pawn, but I can't do it. So let's just pull the knight back. Yeah, that's just free material. Pawn to b3 looks dangerous because maybe it traps my bishop. But he didn't do it. I mean, the guy's getting opportunities and he's not taking any of them. Let's go queen e6 and guard the bishop. Pawn b3 no longer traps the bishop. I also need to, whoa. All right, guys, I think I'm playing this game a bit too reckless. I think I'm being a bit too reckless playing this game. Let's calm down. All right, let's play queen to d5. I must keep my bishop guarded. I need to be careful. Luckily, I'm still safe. Maybe I'm not even safe. Now pawn b3 could trap the bishop. Oh my god, he found it. Okay, guys, we claim him. We claim this guy. He is Jamaican and he is my friend. God, man, what am I doing? I'm just playing too reckless. When I should castle, I'm not castling. This is why. You see, I actually knew this was gonna happen. You probably think I'm lying, but I knew I was gonna lose my bishop. I did it because I wanted to show you guys the lesson on why you should not be greedy and take free pawns. Oh my god. All right, let's lock in. How does this work? I'm gonna lose the bishop. Pawn to g5 hits the queen. Queen goes here. All right, I'm just gonna go crazy. Let's go g5. Offense is the best defense. He's not able to take my bishop because his queen is under attack. And if he puts his queen here, I go here. Hit the queen again. Another lesson. You see, I'm really trying my best to teach you guys here. I'm trying. Do not push pawns on the side that your king is on. Oh my god, this is the worst game. All right, what do we do here? The good thing is, I'm able to play I'm able to play knight g4. Still not losing the bishop because I'm hitting the queen. And I think he has to put the queen here. And then once he puts the queen here, we take on f2. And if he takes my bishop, I take his rook. Ah, this is where everything ends though. Because if I takes, he takes, that could end in a draw. So let's take hit the rook, and then once he moves the rook, I go back to g4, hit this pawn. I'm just trying my best to play as many attacking moves. And then when I can't play any more attacking moves, what is this guy doing, bro? Right, guys, we don't claim this guy. Honestly, we don't really claim this guy. The rook was clearly under attack and he didn't even move the rook. I guess he's trying to attack g5. But now I have three pieces attacking this. His rook is hanging. So here's how I'm going to hit him. First, we take on b3, and I'm going to say check. Because if he takes with the knight, queen takes is another check. Still have to be careful because the pawns around my king has moved and my king is very weak. But let's see. By the way, if you haven't liked the video as yet, guys, help me to hit 1K likes in this video. Does a lot for the channel. So he moves the king out the way. Question is, wait, there's a little trick here, but it just doesn't work. Like, I want to take the rook, and then after he takes, I check, but it's going to come with check. Oh, it does work, guys. I'm going to trick him. Watch this. Take the rook. It does work. Take the rook. And he's being cute, right? He's going to be like, let's not take the knight. Let's take on g5 first and threaten the mate. Offense is the best defense. But if he takes on g5, the queen is unprotected. I hit him with knight e4 check. And if he takes on e4, we take the... Bro, you're also making mouse lips. That was a clear mouse lip. Poor guy. Poor guy. Let's check the king. Don't be making mouse lip, bro. No, it's just bad. I mean, he's down by 12 points. And I'm not giving him my knight. Oh, tactics alert. This is why you don't make mouse lips. Watch this. You see how the queen and the king is orientated to each other? Hit him with knight to g3. So the knight that he should have took caused him to lose his queen. And he's already down by 10 points. He's about to be down by 19 points of material. And he resigned. More NIMZO Indian defense against 1300 level players. Stick around. The opponent is now 1300. Let's play some more NIMZO Indian defense. Now, after c4, pawn to e6, this is the start of the NIMZO Indian. They could play knight f3 or knight c3. Knight f3 is the Bogo Indian. Knight c3 is the NIMZO Indian. So now we're seeing knight c3, regular development move. Now we go bishop to b4. This is the official NIMZO Indian, and there's a lot of ways in which you guys could play. For example, when they play a3, I think this is the same-ish variation. They're immediately trying to chase away your bishop. We simply take on c3. Yes, most times when you play the NIMZO Indian, you will be giving up your bishop for the knight. In this case, however, we're managing to double up the opponent's pawn, and now we're going to play the move c5. You guys are going to see this c5 move a lot. Now, after knight to f3, doesn't really do much. So let's just get our king out the center of the board. And just to teach you guys some chess strategy, since we gave up the dark squared bishop, it is now wise if we're able to put as many of our pawns on dark squares. So, for example, a strategy for me could be pawn to d6, pawn to b6, and then my light squared bishop is going to be able to go to even a6 and attack this weak pawn on c4. Okay, so pawn to e3 was played. There is pawn to d6 here. And just keep in mind, we are not afraid of trading queens here because if he decides to take, then he's just double. Well, his pawns are already doubled, but the double pawns are going to be even uglier. All right, so bishop to d3 was played. Let's continue with the plan. We're putting our pawns on dark squares. Now I have ideas of playing bishop to b7 to put my bishop on this diagonal. In some cases, I can also play bishop a6, attack this weak pawn. And because the knight and the bishop is adjacent to each other, I'm also thinking about playing e5 followed by e4. Now let's just continue with development. It's very important that we develop though, guys. Like, it doesn't really matter which opening that we're playing. Development should always be on the forefront, if that makes sense. And I already told you guys bishop a6 was an idea. And if I had chose to play bishop a6 to hit this pawn, I would have played knight c6 followed by knight a5 to target the pawn even more. But because I chose to put the bishop on b7, I may just play knight to d7 followed by e5. The thing about this though is the moment I play e5, they may play d5. Now, keep in mind that white has the bishop here. Whenever you have the bishop here, the goal is to open the position. So if I play e5 and then white play d5, he's basically closing the position, and that's good for black. Okay, a3 was kind of like an unnecessary pawn move. I'm assuming he's not really sure what he's doing. I'm going to keep my options a bit open here. Instead of playing knight d7 e5, which makes a lot of sense, it's very principled. Actually, let's do it. I don't want to be breaking too many principles. So I was about to say I'm going to go rook e8 e5 with the same idea of playing e4, but I think this is also fine. Bishop to b7 or bishop here. I want you guys to notice how his dark squared bishop isn't really doing anything. Now we play e5, and again, now he's not able to play d5 because of this fork. Remember, when two pieces are adjacent to each other like this, then you have to be looking out for tactics. If he takes, we're still going to be taking back, threatening the fork. He's also not able to play e4. All right, so he plays bishop to f5, which is usually a good move. The plan is just to eliminate the knight, giving up the bishop for the knight. The thing is, though, he will be giving up his good bishop because this his is bad bishop. Let's just continue with the regular chess here. Queen e7, connecting the rooks. I want you guys to notice how it doesn't really matter which opening I'm playing. The plan behind the opening remains the same. Get all pieces off the back rank. The king and the two rooks should be the only pieces on the back rank. Now he decides to play d5, and I'm kind of thinking about switching around the plans a bit. For example, my light squared bishop isn't too good anymore. And because of this, I'm thinking about going bishop a6, but I have to be very careful how I do it. Because if I go bishop a6 here, no, yes, it hits the weak pawn, but queen a4 hits the bishop, guard the pawn. That's kind of good for him. I like the idea of playing e4 to hit the knight, and then once the knight move, I play knight e5. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. So e4 hits the knight. It's also a clearance move because I'm creating the space for this knight to move to e5. And again, guys, this is like the perfect scenario for black players when they play the NIMZO Indian because bishops are better than knight, but can't be this bishop. All right, so the knight went back. Now I go knight e5. My pawn is under attack twice. I'm underguarding it once, so that's kind of tricky. But the moment he decides to take my pawn on e4, the knight will no longer be guarding c4, and I will be able to take on c4. And I could also be winning material. Tactics alert, tactics alert. Come on, Mr. 1300. He puts the rook on the exact square that the rook should not move to. Now, this is called a fork, guys. Remember, to find tactics, you look for moves on the opponent's half of the board. So once we hit him with knight d3, we hit the unprotected bishop and we're attacking the rook. And remember, whenever there's unprotected pieces in a position, that's what give way for tactic. And what my opponent needs to do here is to save his bishop, even though it's so bad, and give me the rook. Because if he saves the rook and give me the bishop, that's a full 3 points. But if he saves the bishop and give me the rook, then I will also lose my knight. So it's only 2 points. Either way, I'm winning. So he saved the bishop. We still take the rook, and now my pawn on e5 is under attack. One, two, three. I'm guarding it twice. So let's just go rook to e8. Now I have three pieces guarding the pawn. He has three pieces attacking the pawn, which means my pawn is safe. And because his bishop is on my half of the board, I'm thinking about playing pawn to g6, which tactics alert. It traps the bishop. Like the bishop just has no squares to go. So once you play pawn to g6, it's completely winning. Oh, never mind, never mind. Never mind. I mean, the bishop is able to go back. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, I'm ahead in material though, so I think we need to just trade pieces off the board. Just takes. The pawn on c4 is weak, so bishop a6 is still an idea. But because the pawn on g4 is this weak, let's try to face or focus on this weak pawn. Because playing something like pawn to f3, which is what he did, he is now pushing pawns on the side that his king is on. So we're definitely fine with this. But another thing that you guys need to see is what happens when he plays pawn to f3. My queen is now on the same line as his rook. Well, it was on the same line as his rook, and the rook was unprotected. So now that he plays f3, we take the free rook, and okay, this is now just game. All right, so he took on e4. This is the only piece that I have that is not doing anything. So I need to get my rook in the game. And the target is this pawn on e4. So let's just go rook. And I just want you guys to look on this dark squared bishop. It's just really like it's there, but it's like a tall pawn not doing anything. Once I play rook to e8, this pawn is going to be hanging. And bishop to c8 followed by bishop a6 gets my bishop in the game. Okay, bro, this is not how we play chess. You shouldn't be down by 6 points and then offering to trade the queens off the board. No, this is just game. I'm ahead by 7 points, forking the two pawns. I'm going to take one of them. I'm swinging the other rook in the game next. All right, he hits the rook. Let's just guard the rook, which means the knight is now not able to move because he loses the pawn, which is why he pulls the bishop back to protect the pawn. Now we're attacking this unprotected pawn. Okay, now he's hitting the rook. Let's just take, hitting this pawn. Now I'm ahead by 8 points. When the opponent resigns, more NIMZO Indian against 1400 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1400. Some more NIMZO Indian defense. C4, we go E6, bishop B4, next move. Knight F3, Boga Indian. Knight C3, NIMZO Indian. This is the NIMZO Indian defense. Some persons will play bishop to D2. I like to just cast like the NIMZO Indian defense is a quick way to just get your king out of the center of the board. Okay, now he's developing normally. And I could go the d6 e5 approach. I could also go with the b6 bishop b7 approach. And I think either way, even if I put the bishop on b7, I'm still going to be playing d6 e5. And honestly, sometimes I get a bit confused because putting the bishop on b7, then play d6, e5, they may play d5 and then I have to pull the bishop back to c8 or a6. But that's how positional chess works. Now the bishop is on a good diagonal. Usually I like when they play bishop to d3 because eventually I can also set up a fork on e4. Okay, the bishop went on e2. Usually, it is good to put the bishop on e2 if a bishop is on b7, so that way, eventually, they could move the knight out the way and go bishop f3. Let's continue with the plan. d6, knight d7. And in some cases, like this case, instead of playing e5, we could actually play like a Dutch defense where, okay, notice how I didn't take the knight until he attacks my bishop. Now, once he takes back, we jump in with the knight on e4, and all of a sudden, it looks like a Dutch defense where I'm going to play f5, rook f6, rook h6, swing the pieces over, and start attacking his king. All right, so the rook guards the bishop. Let's continue with the plan. Pawn f5. We want to go for some rook lift ideas here. And whenever you do the rook lift, if they go this move d5, just play e5, downside, your light squared bishop. Because again, right now the light squared bishop is the best bishop. But once they play d5, it's best to play e5. All right, he moves the queen, adding more support to the bishop. Now we go with the rook lift, and now my rook could go to either h6 or g6. Sometimes it's good to put the rook on g6 because there's usually some nice tactical stuff happening on g2. Okay, the guy, maybe he's trying to just get rid of the knight, but that's not the best approach. Um, His last move just makes me want to go rook g6, but I think rook h6 is better. Go rook g6. There's too much happening on this g2 square. For example, if he takes bishop takes, hit the queen, hits the knight. All right, queen jumps over to e2, adding some defense to the knight because the plan was to take the bishop and then win the knight. All right, there's knight g5, and if he takes... Okay, I like knight g5. Knight g5, if he takes, I take on g2 first. And if king takes, then I take with check. Let's do that. I think this is going to be where the game ends, guys. Very nice idea. Okay, if he takes, I think queen takes is also winning. Nah, because f3 is very strong. So if he takes here, I take here first. It's very risky though. Like, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, because he's going to play f3 next anyways. So let's take on g2. And the point is, if he plays king takes, I check, and he's mated. So he's not able to play king takes. And if he moves the knight, my rook gets discovered attacking possibilities. So I'm down in material, but the attack that I have here, yeah, this is mateable. Oh, you resigned for NIMZO Indian against 1500 level opponent. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1500. Let's play some more NIMZO Indian defense. Pawn c4, we go e6. We're seeing some knight f3. We're still going to put the bishop on b4. This one is the BOGO Indian defense. Bishop d2. There's also knight d2. Knight d2 is slightly it's slightly harder. Now, there's two ways in which I'm gonna teach you guys this. I'm gonna be showing you guys the whole. Okay, so I'm always gonna castle. So you're always gonna castle. If he had played a3, I was about to tell you guys that we can put the bishop on e7, or we could take on d2. But now he plays g3, so we're just gonna continue with the plan. Pawn d6. The plan is to play e5. He has two pieces on e5, so let's just go knight d7 so that we were able to play e5. Once he castle, we go e5, and we're playing with the same plan. The whole idea is to control the dark squares. Pawn a3, we definitely don't want to keep this bishop because it could be trapped. So let's give up the bishop for the knight. Okay, he took with the bishop. Interesting. Something about that move is suspicious. Wait. Pawn e4 hits the knight, knight g4 hits the pawn, rook e1 guards the pawn, queen c2 hits the pawn, queen e7 guards the pawn. I have three defenders, he has three attackers. He can't add additional attackers, and pawn h6 chases away the knight. Let's go with that. And whenever you're able to play moves like e4, it is slightly risky because you could lose the pawn, but you gain a very nice space advantage. So knight back to e1. Let's go rook to e8, ensuring that we're keeping the pawn safe. Okay, bishop g5, not bad. Let's just chase away that bishop. Is he going to give up the bishop for the knight? Because that would be very good news for us. Yeah, he gave up the bishop for the knight. And in some cases, I want to play e3, which is why he played e3. But need to develop this bishop. Why not develop the bishop with tempo on his queen? Guy also needs to be careful where he puts the queen. Like, putting the queen on b3 would have run right into bishop e2. But he puts the queen on the right square. I'm assuming he wants to play h3. So let's just go with queen to d7 here and prevent him from playing h3. In some cases, I may also want to play bishop h3 because once I'm able to eliminate this bishop, his light squares around this king is going to be very weak. On, bro. Guys, I don't want you to think these people are listening to me while I'm playing. But it's the only piece that you shouldn't have moved, bro. This is the drawback principle, guys. This is how regular people blunder. Like weak people, they just give away their pieces. Strong people blunder tactically. Regular people, they blunder with the drawback principle. They don't think about what the piece was doing. They just think about what the piece is going to do. Now I hit him with bishop to e2. There goes your rook, bro. Well, it's not an entire rook, but he is losing the exchange. Okay, he moves the knight out the way. Let's grab the rook. Now we're ahead in material. Very, very simple plan. Get the pieces off the board. All right, I also need to create some open files as well because there's so many pawns on the board. It's not good proof that my rooks are better. So I need to start looking for some pawn breaks, which is why I'm going to play c5. Now the reason why I'm choosing c5 is I'm aware that he doesn't have to take. But if he chooses not to take, for example, something like this, his knight is not able to move forward. He's putting his rook on the same line as my queen, though. So let's get the queen off of that line. If he takes, he's opening lines. And if he push, it makes his knight a bit harder to move. Okay, b4. That's what we wanted, though, right? Open lines. Takes, takes. Rook here. Push. Takes, takes. And then everything is just being open. Or maybe take here. Now let's just take here. And after he takes, I'm going to play a5 first. Notice what I'm doing, guys. Because I'm the one with the exchange, like the rook versus the bishop, I'm trying to open lines. And even if it's not a case where you have the exchange, anytime you want to open lines for your pieces, you need to think about pawn breaks. Now I'm going to take with the queen because I'm ahead in material and the goal is to trade. Okay, he moves his queen out the way. Nice move. Hit this pawn. But we know the goal. We're just trying to get the pieces off the board. Rook to b1 would be nice because my pawn on b7 is weak. He's trading though. He's making our life a bit easier. Now he's hitting the rook. Let's just hit the knight. And the knight also does not have a lot of good squares to move. The knight has to go to d5. And once I take the knight on d5, now you guys could see why it's important to trade. Now, my rook is a bit overworked guarding the pawn. I mean, a pawn can always do that job. So let's go f5. And my plan from here is to get two rooks on the second rank. If I'm able to get this rook on c2 or a2, then his position is going to be so defensive. For example, he's controlling this file. So I'm going to try to get to a2. And once I take on f2, I'm going to be taking all the pawns. Plus, I have a pass pawn rolling up the board. So h4, now we go here. And if he has to play rook to f1, then that's like the most passive position to have. Now, because there's possibilities of him playing bishop h3, I'm going to play h5 so that way if bishop h3, I go g6 and the pawn breaks that he has just doesn't work. Another thing I want to tell you guys is a lot of persons don't know how to plan. Planning comes from pawn breaks. So anytime you after the opening, you're like, yo, I don't know what to do here. Ask yourself, where are the pawn breaks? Where does the pawn meet? And that's how you're going to see the plan. Actually, I have a very nice move here. And okay, you guys are not going to be able to see it. If you see it, then that's good. But I'm going to be able to play this move, rook to h3. And the bishop is trapped. Because now if he pulls the bishop back, that's mate. There's nowhere for him to put the bishop. Maybe he's going to grab the pawn. But once I take the bishop, no, okay. Another drop. Bro, Ghana is counting on you. If you're trying to get your elo up, you need to ask yourself, what is my piece doing before I move it? Why? Because that's a checkmate, bro. Drawback. More NIMZO Indian against 1600 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1600. More NIMZO Indian coming your way. Before we go e6, this is the NIMZO Indian. Let's see what we're going to see. A Boga Indian. Let's go bishop b4. Check that king. He blocks with the bishop. And whenever they block with the bishop, we go queen to e7 and protect. And then he plays g3. Now, it looks as if this guy knows his stuff. So let's just get the king out the center of the board. And usually once the bishop goes here, the plan is to play d6. If we play d6, we lose the bishop. So we have to take on d2 first. And then once they take back, we go d6 followed by e5. So castle, we go e5. This is very theoretical, by the way, guys. Like, I've had positions like these against grandmasters. All right, now e3 was played. And let's go bishop to g4. Usually in these types of scenarios, it's good to just eliminate the knight once we get the chance. I want you guys to also notice how my pawn on b7 is unprotected on the same line as the bishop. h3 we take, and then once the bishop takes, I could either play e4, hits the bishop, or just play pawn c6. Like, once I play pawn c6, the bishop is already not active, and I don't necessarily want to commit to e4 this quickly. Tactics alert. All right, this is not like winning anything huge, but it's still important that you guys are able to spot weaknesses. Unprotected pieces causes tactics. Unprotected pieces causes tactics. And remember, whenever there's more than one unprotected piece in a position, that's how tactics happens. Now we hit him with queen e6, hitting this pawn and this pawn. All right, he chose to protect the c pawn instead. So let's take the h pawn. I mean, he's still able to go bishop to g2, hit the queen. And what are the chances? Queen h6, knight g4 is checkmate. That's never going to work. Because even if I get the chance to play knight g4, he moves the rook, I check, king over, and I have nothing. So let's just pull the queen back somewhere where it stays active and then finish my development. Like, I'm already ahead by a pawn, you know? No need to tackle myself up. All right, so d5 hits the queen. If I takes, knight takes, bishop takes, queen move, guards the pawn, or just move the queen. Kind of want him to take so that way I play pawn takes. It's a bit tricky though because if I play pawn takes, it's hard to develop my knight without losing this pawn. And if I play knight takes, my d5 square is weak. I would actually love for him not to take, and he didn't. Now what am I going to do? First, I must eliminate the knight, but then I'm just going to play c5. And remember, guys, the whole purpose of you learning stuff like these, like NIMZO Indian defense, this is showing you guys positional chess. You know, so bishops are better than bishops are better than knights. I know you guys heard that a lot, but when are knights better than bishops? Knights are better than bishops when the position is closed because the knight is able to jump around the board. All right, king to g2. Clearly, he wants to put the rook on h1, which doesn't really work. So let's just finish my development. And couldn't he have sack takes check king move? Nah, that doesn't work. Knight f6 hits the bishop, but offense is the best defense. I mean, he's attacking h7. Let's just hit him with f5, hit the bishop, protect h7, and in some rare cases, pawn to f4 should start an attack. But let's focus on having every piece in the game first. Let's swing this rook over. I also want to play e4 followed by knight e5, and probably should have played e4. Okay, queen e2. Guy wants to get his queen here so badly. All right, I think pawn to g6 prevents the queen from coming here. And if I'm able to play pawn to, yo, guy's trying to attack, bro. It doesn't work though. Look at this, guys. Now, if you have the opponent's bishop pointing towards your pawn chain, then that bishop is really not good. Yes, he's threatening h7 twice. I'm already guarding h7 twice. Personally, I could like give him the queen and take the two rooks, but let's just go rook to f7, guard the pawns. Like his rooks are active somewhat, but my knight is way better than the bishop. And the funny thing about this position, I think eventually I'm going to be the one attacking his king, like some g5, f4 in the very far future can come in. All right, he moves the queen. Maybe he wants this, threaten this, or put the queen here or something. Let's just centralize the knight. And yes, guys, in general, bishops are better than knights. But as you guys could see how close the position is, his bishop is so bad because his own pawns prevents his bishop from moving, and my pawns have his bishop pointing towards the pawn chain. And whenever you're trying to attack someone's pawn chain, it's usually best to attack the base, and there's no good ways to apply more pressure to my base. All right, so now I'm trying to figure out how do I start the attack. I'm going to be very patient here. Knight f3, no need to do that just yet. Let's go king to h8, rook to g8, and then rook to g7. So that way, I just don't even think about my h pawn. All right, he's pinning my knight. There's no way to apply pressure. If he push, I just take. Let's continue with the plan. And then the plan is to start, okay, if I start to roll these pawns up the board, it automatically brings his bishop in the game. So I still have to be very careful about what I'm doing. Was that was not good. I mean, it was creative, but if I takes his bishop is active. Okay, let me continue with the plan first. Rook here means the knight is not pinned. I can't take with the knight, by the way, because it was pinned. But now I'm threatening. Come on, bro. My knight is no longer pinned. That is now a pawn. Now the position is just so easy for me to play. Another thing that I could do is just to play h5, and then his rooks are really not going to be active. And because I'm ahead by 2 pawns, trading queens off the board will make the game easier for me to win. All right, he's trying to get rid of my knight, but it's clearly a better piece than his bishop, so let's just pull the knight back. I'm still thinking about rolling my pawns up the board, by the way, because his king seems to be safe right now, but once I play g5 and then f4 hit the rook, maybe I could even play f3. And if he takes, I'm opening up some lines. It's just that I could get his bishop active, so I just need to be a bit cautious. Okay, pawn to b4. If I takes, queen takes, maybe knight here hits the queen. Let's just play b6. Like, I don't want to be worrying too much about the queen side because there's not a lot of stuff happening over there. Maybe now I could try to control the b file, but still there's not much happening. All right, queen comes back. He's trying to check here. H5, sack takes. Okay, if he checks, I just block with one of the rooks. I'm fine. All right, let's start the plan with pawn to g5. So I'm not afraid of any queen checks because I could literally block with any one of the rooks. Yeah. Look at me allowing the guy's bishop to get a job. Let's just pull the rook back because I mean, assuming he was planning on checking anyways, pawn push hits the rook is an idea. Knight f3 is also an idea. I really should just look to trade the queens off the board, but he's 1600. He's not going to make it easy. All right, he pulls the bishop back. So we hit the rook, takes, 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 check is good. Hit the rook, which means I'm not expect. Ooh, he had to take because the queen and the king and the bishop is on the same line. Well, not the same line, but they're adjacent to each other, which means I'm threatening some pawn fork type of stuff. Check first. If the king goes here, I check. Ooh, look at this. In between move. Because if I check here, the king runs. But if I check now, he's not able to run. If he sack his bishop, I just take with check. I'm going to take on g7 next and win the game. This is crazy. Now, if he runs, I take the bishop with check, which he kind of has to. Because, I mean, if he pulls the king back, then I just take the rook. So we take here with check. This is called an in-between move. And after he responds to the check, then I take the rook and I'm winning the game. Nice. All right, queen takes. Queen takes, I go here. Go here, threaten the mate, and I'm just winning. All right, let's go with queen to f6. That was a trick. That would have been a drawback mistake. So hopefully you guys have seen that because he's applying a lot of pressure here. Because I'm ahead in material, I really just want to start trading. But I guess knight g5 is very strong. The queen guards the knight. The queen guards h7. I'm attacking f2 twice, not seeing how he's going to be able to guard f2. He has to move the pawn, and if he moves the pawn, I apply more pressure. If he moves it again, I apply more pressure until I win the pawn. Maybe it's best for him to just move it to f4. All right, so he plays f3. Tactics alert, guys. Tactics alert. How do we find tactics? Forcing moves. Boom. Checks. But remember, it's not just checks. It's checks, captures, and threats. Boom. Sack the queen. Because once the king takes, we play knight f2, forking everything back, and now we are completely winning the game. And he resigns. More NIMZO Indian against 1700 players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1700. More NIMZO Indian coming your way. So pawn c4, let's just go e6. And we're seeing a Boga Indian defense. We're still going to be going bishop to b4. And after bishop d2, we go queen to e7. If you're not yet a part of my memberships, it's going to cost you $3 to join. And you're going to get access to all the video of myself explaining the theory behind all of these openings that I'm playing. So after a3, we take on d2. And now we're seeing queen takes, which is a good move. Same plan, by the way, pawn d6, pawn e5, but let's just start by getting the king out the center of the board. Okay, knight c3, guy's playing very fast. Looks like he knows his theory. Pawn e4, now we play pawn e5. We know what the goal is here. Okay, d5 was played, and how does this work? Usually once you see d5, getting a knight to the c5 score is usually good, but let's just play c6 first. Because once I take on d5, it opens up the c file, which means I'm also able to put rook on the c file. And he played a3 to prevent my bishop from going here. Let's continue with the plan, knight d7. Eventually, I want to go knight c5, apply pressure to this pawn, and pawn a5 to make it hard for them to play b4. Okay, he played immediate b4. He's trying to prevent my knight from getting there. I'm still going to play a5 though. But I don't think he's going to move the pawn. But if he does move the pawn, then I go knight c5. If he keeps the pawn there, then my goal is to target the pawn. I'm expecting something like queen b2, rook b1, anything to protect the pawn. Maybe he doesn't even need to protect the pawn. Okay, that's the move that we wanted to see. Now that he played b5, my knight gets very good access to the c5 square. No, I'm not only threatening this pawn, I'm also threatening a fork. So he's not able to play bishop d3. He has to play queen c2, which is what he found. But here's what I'm going to hit him with now. Pawn to a4. What's the purpose of pawn to a4? First of all, he didn't get the chance to play a4. My knight and my rook works perfectly protecting a4. I'm now have full control over b3. So knight b3 hits the rook, followed by knight d4 is an idea. But I want to simply play bishop d7 and just get a rook on the same line as his queen. All right, bishop e2 was played. Knight b3, rook move, knight here doesn't help. Let's finish our development. Part of me want to use the A rook, but really not seeing what the F rook is doing. Even though usually the goal is to move the knight and then play F5. All right, king is castled. Let's go rook F to C8. Still wasn't sure which rook to use, but because my rook is on the same line as his queen, he has to be very, very careful here. Like already I'm threatening to just take the free pawn because the knight is going to be pinned. Okay, he saw that. But he didn't see everything. Tactics alert. What did I tell you guys about unprotected pieces? I have a book that is finished and it will be launched soon. And what I talk about is unprotected pieces causes tactics in a position. It's the second most important weakness that you guys need to pay attention to, apart from king safety. Now, because the knight is unprotected and on the same line as my rook, which is the third most important weakness to pay attention to, I'm able to play the move knight b3. This is kind of like a discovered attack. Move the knight out the way, hit the rook, but my rook attacks his unprotected knight. Now, if he moves the rook, he loses the knight, which means he has to save his knight, give me the rook, and just like that, I will be ahead in material. Well, it wasn't correct to give me the free knight. Like I talk about this so much times. If you're in a dilemma, do I lose a rook but then get a knight, or do I lose an entire knight? You have to give up the rook, bro, because you're choosing to lose an entire 3 points instead of losing 2 points. No, it's just simply rook to c8, doubling up my rook on the c file, and eventually I'll just positionally I'll play this guy. All right, bishop goes back, trying to eliminate my knight, but my knight is just in such a good square, doing such a good role. And by the way, what was this bishop even doing on e2? It was covering b5. You see, this is how the drawback principle works. It's just so important for you guys to know this. Now we take the free pawn, hit the rook. Rook now has to move. And I also like the idea of playing rook c1. It kind of looks like it traps the queen, but it doesn't because the queen gets this square. So let's just use the time to swing the rest of the pieces in the game. Now every single piece is active. My queen and my knight is active. Queen is not really doing much, but it's doing okay. Maybe the queen is not active. He took, which is helping us. I mean, he's the one who is trading. I should be the one begging for the trades. Now I'm going to take with the pawn so that we have a very strong pass pawn. I'm expecting him to put the rook here to attack my pawn twice, but I have something for him. I know that he wants to take my pawn, and that's why I'm going to play this move, bishop to d3, which hits the queen. Not only am I hitting the queen, I'm attacking the pawn on e4 twice. So if he plays queen to d1, okay, maybe I'm going to have to play this first because I don't want to lose my pawn. Like, I could take and then he takes. Ooh, it's a trick. It's a trick. Watch this. Watch this. Boom. Why does this work? Even though he's attacking this twice, I have a light scored bishop on the board. And if he takes on b3, I'm able to hit him with bishop to b2 because his queen and his rook is going to be on the same line. Oh my God, he took with the rook. This is game. This is game. He's already down by 4 points and he's losing more material. He resigns. More NIMZO Indian against 1800 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1800. Blessing you guys with some more NIMZO Indian defense. All right, pawn c4. Here we go, e6. Bishop to b4 is coming next. And after knight c3, this is the NIMZO Indian defense. And remember, guys, I'm going to be covering both the NIMZO Indian, the Bulga Indian, what happens if they don't play c4 after they play d4. All of this will be available on the membership section of YouTube. So if you want to get access to all of the opening videos, then join the membership, support the channel. It will cost you like $2.50, I think. All right, he's developing normally. Let's continue with the game plan. Pawn to d6. Idea is to play pawn to e5. And we only take on c3 when they attack the bishop. I mean, sometimes it's good to take on c3 just to double the pawns, because now he plays knight e2, then he's going to attack the bishop and the pawns are not going to be doubled. But let's just continue to develop. All right, he got his king out the center. Now we go e5. This is what we've been doing the whole time. There's b6, bishop b7, but we have to be aware of them playing d5 as well. So sometimes it's good to leave the bishop on c8 for a while. And the light squared bishop is usually the bad bishop. Like in every opening that I know, the light squared bishop is the bad bishop. So once you're playing with black, any opening that you're playing, you just need to naturally know what to do with your light squared bishop playing with black. All right, queen c to apply some pressure here. Let's go pawn c6. Very useful move. Prevent any piece from coming to d5. Queen e7, rook e8, pawn e4 could be an idea. Ooh, f4 is very aggressive. Definitely don't want to take the f pawn because it gives his rook the open file. So I'm gonna choose to take the d pawn so that way his rook doesn't get the file. And now my rook is gonna be able to get access to the e file. Right, he took on d4 with the pawn. Now my rook gets the file, and I don't think my light squared bishop is gonna have any huge difficulties joining the game. I just need to pull my knight back to f8. The funny thing is, if he takes too long to play a3, you may be seeing my bishop controlling this diagonal. But let's not get too ambitious. F5. So here's what f5 does. It activates his dark squared bishop, but it makes his light squared bishop and his queen inactive. All right, I think he's trying to get the bishop here. So let's just go h6, prevent that. Prophylaxis. Now he's able to put the bishop here though. All right, he finally plays a3. Okay, I don't want to complicate the game. Let's just take. And more than likely, he's going to take with the knight. Just keep more control over the e4 square. Kind of getting concerned about my light squared bishop now because pawn on f5 is a bit annoying. But I have really good control over the e file. Wasn't expecting taking with the pawn at all. All right, let's go d5. Like, I'm not really too concerned about the fact that he has double pawns. I'm trying to just activate all my pieces. So if he takes, I go knight takes, and then my knight could jump to e3. I still need to figure out what's the plan with this light squared bishop. I think I'm just going to keep it there until we go further down in the game, and then it joins the game. There's also queen c7, knight g4, but that will never work because the moment the queen goes to c7, there's bishop f4. He's also not even allowing bishop f4. All right, knight e4, some central control, or takes bishop takes, knight b6, hit the bishop. Once the bishop moves, we go knight d5, hit the other bishop. All right, let's do that. By the way, guys, my opponent has the bishop here. So me doing all of these pawn trades, it's not really too good for my position. So I have to really ensure that what I'm doing is making sense. So knight d5 is definitely coming next. Like whenever you have a knight versus a bishop, your knight has to be in the center. Because if the knight is not in the center, then the bishops are now just better than your knights. And playing the NIMZO Indian defense is one of those openings where you're going to be giving up your bishop for a knight very early on. So, from a strategic perspective, you have to know the type of positions that you want. Because if you just open up the position and don't think about what you're doing, then you could be in some real trouble. Do I have a tactic here? Like, I think I have a tactic, but based on my development, it kind of seems risky. Like, the queen is overworked guarding both of these pieces. Bishop takes, queen takes, rook takes. But I think if I go for that, I'm going to lose the game, especially since he has the bishop here. I don't want to give up the only bishop that I have. If I could magically get my bishop here, that would be nice, but that's not how chess works. All right, let's go with knight d5. Hit the bishop. Some ideas of playing knight e3. Some ideas of going queen e7, hit the knight. Maybe queen a5, hit this pawn. Maybe b6, bishop a6. Maybe that's the diagonal for my light squared bishop. Ooh, aggressive. Whoa! Rabak? Wasn't the bishop guarding the square? Mr. Belgium? Hit the queen. Check, takes, check. Don't care. Yeah, this is winning. All right, guys. I think I'm doing fine. Using the word winning is actually a stretch because look at it this way. Yes, I just fought him, right? I'm giving up my knight, which is one of my best pieces, which was in the center of the board. I'm actually giving up my knight for the A rook, which was a piece that was not doing anything because once I take the rook like this, he's going to take back with the other rook. So now, if I do not get my light squared bishop and my A rook in the game stat, then I will lose this game. Never mind. I'm completely winning. I am completely winning this game. Why? Because there's a tactic here. How does tactics work? Tactics work when there are protected pieces, when there are pieces on the same line. Why? Pin pieces don't protect. He thinks the pawn guards the bishop, but it's not. That is a free bishop, Mr. Belgium. Because if he takes my rook, I take the queen, and on the next move, I mean, maybe if he moves away the queen, I take on f5. So I'm now ahead by 5 whole points, which means I'm ahead by a whole entire rook. All right, queen moves out the way. This is now under attack. I mean, I can just sack, to be honest. I can also go rook d5. But let's just play the simple rook e7 and protect our f pawn. All right, knight is joining the game. I'm going to play the entire game without using my rook or my bishop. That's not very instructive. I need to get these pieces in the game. Let's go b6. And yes, I know that I'm leaving my c6 pawn unprotected, but if he takes bishop to b7 and my bishop is very strong, I'm already ahead by a rook. So if you're ahead in material, consider giving back some material to simplify the game. So that's what I'm trying to do. If he takes, I go here, queen move, I go here, and then we're just simplifying. So he didn't take, he pulls the queen back. Now we play c5. If he takes, he loses the queen. Notice how open this diagonal now is. All of a sudden, my light, you see, that's what I meant when I say I'm just going to play until the bishop joins the game. So he pushes the pawn. Okay, he's going to play c4 next. Annoying. Very annoying. All right, let's go queen d6. I'm going to try to double up the rooks on the e file. He's definitely going to play c4. So maybe my bishop is still not doing anything. Maybe it's best to just leave the bishop on d7. All right, so pawn c4. Let's just leave the bishop on d7 and then swing the rook over to e8. Again, it's like a placeholder piece for now. Eventually, that bishop will join the game. All right, pulling back doesn't make much sense. Let's double up. Plan is just to start trading. Whoa, pulls the knight all the way back. Let's just get the rooks off the board. You're ahead in material. Very simple plan. Just trade. Okay, he's trying to get the knight back in the game. Now we triple up on the file. If he plays rook takes, I take, and it forces the queens off the board. All right, g3, I take, just trying to trade. Queen here, just trying to trade. And if he moves away the queen, knight g4 also comes in with another trade. But he's just trading here. Yeah, this is not good for us. Still, my light squared bishop isn't doing anything. Let's hit the pawn. Plan is to take. Maybe he push. Okay, maybe I could have played rook to e2, hit the bishop. But he only has like a few seconds on the clock. And he resigns. More NIMZO Indian against 1900 level players. Stick around. Your opponent is now 1900. More NIMZO Indian coming your way. Opponent is now 1900. Let's play some more NIMZO Indian defense. Now, after c4, we go e6. So knight f3, Bogo Indian. Knight c3, NIMZO Indian. Either way, we're still going to be playing the move bishop to b4. And in this position, you will see persons blocking with the knight on d2 or blocking with the bishop on d2. Okay, blocking with the knight on d2 is an interesting way to play. Usually, we're just going to get the king out the center of the board. And remember, majority of the time, we're going to be giving up the bishop for the knight. But there's actually a very cool idea that I learned here. And the reason why I'm not going to be giving up the bishop for the knight right now is because I don't really get anything for it. I didn't double up any pawns or anything. So I'm actually going to pull my bishop back to e7 now. It seems a bit passive, but remember, guys, playing the NIMZO Indian defense, it means you're very good at positional chess. So my goal from here is to outplay my opponent. So after a move like e4, here's the idea. If you're going to play this, it's kind of important that you know what's happening here. We play d6, followed by knight d7, followed by e5. And okay, playing the NIMZO Indian or the Boga Indian or these types of Indian openings, we usually, or I usually go with the strategy where I'm putting my pawns on dark squares. Okay, so for example, bishop to d3, I could play knight b to d7, but I'm going to play knight f to d7. And these videos are super important because I hope you guys are also questioning certain things that I'm doing. Like, if you're not questioning the fact that why am I moving my bishop more than once? Why am I moving my knight more than once? Then there's something about chess that you don't understand. But let's play e5 first. Now, if you're someone who is questioning that, let me answer. The position is closed. Whenever you're in a closed position, time is not as important. So now that he plays this move d5, I'm going to play knight c5, attacking the unprotected bishop. Usually they want to play b4, so I'm going to play this move a5, preventing them from playing b4. And usually they need to play b3 here, which is what he did. Because if he had allowed me to play a4, then he would have never gotten the chance to play b4. And from here, I want to now do what is called a pawn break because I need to get the rest of my pieces active. So let's play the move f5. He immediately took, and now my bishop takes. And if you guys are noticing what is happening, I'm now active on the F file. So he took, now I take back, and my goal from here is to play on the F file and in the center of the board. My bishop on E7 is a bad bishop, and a lot of times we're able to eliminate this bishop by playing moves like bishop to G5, but no need to rush anything right now. I'm assuming he wants to play B4 soon. Could try to play knight A6, but let's just go knight D7. It's important that we move our pieces towards the center. I was also expecting this move before, and my plan against b4 was to go knight d3 because I have access. Wait. That may not work. Knight d3, there's actually queen c2. Why? Because my rook is unprotected. You see, that's why I tell you guys, like, you don't want to be playing games with any unprotected pieces because this would have been so good if my rook wasn't unprotected. But once he plays queen c2, the moment I move my knight, I lose the rook. So guess we have to have a knight on the edge of the board. It's usually not a terrible scenario though, because it defends against this c5 push. It also attacks the pawn on b4. And if they take on a4, the knight goes back to c5 and black is doing fine. What I need to do now is to get my rook coordinated with the rest of my pieces. Maybe rook f4, so that way it's guarded. Maybe queen f8, so that way I'm applying more pressure to the f file. Let's see what he does. All right, so he moves the queen. Still not afraid of take, still not afraid of push, but we need to be aware of the fact that the queen is on the same line as our king. Not something that we should be comfortable with. But so before anything crazy starts to happen, let's just move that king away. All right, he got his rook on the file. Makes a lot of sense. I need to figure out how to get this rook in the game. Like, the question here is what to do with my queen. Queen f8, then queen f7, or queen e8, then queen h5. Let's go with queen f8 because knight e4 followed by knight g3 is an idea anyways. And it's important that I'm keeping my options open. Now, having my knight on the edge of the board, it seems to be a bit uncomfortable, but here's how I want you guys to look on it. You guys are probably saying my knight is not able to move, which is true. But a way to look on this in a more positive light is my knight is on the 3 points. If he move away his queen, which is 9 points, then he could be losing the pawn on b4. All right, knight back to f1. It's the same thing. He's trying to get to g3 or e3. Good move, by the way. There's no good sacrificial ideas here that does anything. My bishop is still not really doing much. Bishop g5, knight e3 is a very strong move, which means I'm just going to plant my rook on the f4 square for now. We're not afraid of bishop c1. I mean, eventually I'll just pull the rook back and said, okay, he's undeveloping his bishop and disconnecting his rook. And obviously, if he plays pawn g3, he loses the knight. Because I have this battery on his f pawn, you could say I'm threatening to play e4. And if he moves the knight away, I take the pawn on f2. Okay, so he plays knight g3, preventing e4. Now if I play e4, he simply takes. I'm hitting this pawn once, he's guarding it once. I'm thinking about playing knight b6, hitting the pawn again. I mean, a move like rook to c1 is a very simple defense. So I'm thinking about tripling up on the f file, but I'm just trying to ensure that I'm not getting my rook trapped. So let's go queen f7 with ideas of playing rook to f8. Then all my pieces should be doing something. Well, I mean, my pieces are fine, but I can always improve them some more. Like this knight on d7 isn't really doing much. Okay, rookie four. I guess he kind of know that I'm trying to attack him. And because he knows that I'm trying to attack him, he's trying to trade some pieces off the board. Now, knight c5 takes, knight takes, doesn't work, because rook takes f4 will be a move. And even if it it's a case where he has to move the queen and I take the rook, there's always knight take. So that will just not work. So let's just continue with the plan, tripling up on the file. If he takes queen takes, my queen is active. Okay, now he pulls the bishop back. So one could say he is, I mean, this rook is not really that good here anymore. I think he should have actually swing over the rook first, then pull the bishop back. But I'm assuming he's just trying to get me to react with this rook, which is fine. It wasn't a bad move. And I think I have to take, I mean, pulling the rook back won't help. Knight c5 still doesn't work. So let's just takes, knight takes. And now we hit him with this move, queen to g6. It hits the unprotected knight. And in some cases, if he's not careful, rook takes f3 could win material because the pawn on g2 is pinned, which is why he pulls the knight back. Another good move. We just need to ensure that his forward moves aren't really aggressive. Pawn e4 is a move. Hits the knight. I mean, okay, knight b2 could also win my pawn. I don't want to take this pawn because it activates his rook. There's bishop f6 though, which puts my bishop on a nice diagonal. I also like the idea of playing just pawn to c6. You know, just try to start attacking his pawn structure. Yeah, let's do that. Let's go c6. If he takes, I take. On the downside is my knight becomes unprotected. So he took. Let's take back. Anytime he move or push, there's knight c5. So should be safe there still. Queen to okay, queen to a4 is an annoying move because it attacks this, it attacks this. Hmm. That is an annoying move. Queen a4, pawn d5, queen takes, and then my knight is now just looking misplaced. I think he should have played queen here. Bishop e3 developing. Now I'm gonna play no d5 doesn't work still. Oh wait. D5 takes, then I take here. And idea is if he takes here, I take here because the bishop guards. Seems a bit risky though. It's kind of weird. I think I'm going to try to get my knight over here. With that being said, I may have to take this pawn, which I just don't want to do. I really don't want to take this pawn. Maybe I should try bishop to d8 to guard the pawn, and then queen a4, then d5. And then if he takes, maybe I could go knight to c5. Let's try that. I'm only gonna take this pawn if I really have to, because I don't want his rook to be too active. Or maybe if he moves his rook towards this side of the board, then I take the pawn. Okay. Now he plays that move. This is now guarded. Let's play d5, so that way the queen guards the pawn. I mean, technically taking on e5 is still a free pawn, but it's one of those pawns that I should be able to win back, unless it's a very aggressive pass pawn that he just start rolling up the board. But let's see. If he moves this pawn, my knight gets this square. And I'm also threatening to play d4, which hits this bishop. Yeah. He took the pawn. What am I doing? Oh, the knight is unprotected. Oh my god. The knight is unprotected. Because now if I take, there's queen takes. How did I miss that? All right, guys. That was a fumble. I missed that my knight was unprotected. That's crazy. So I'm just down by a pawn, which is not fine. If he takes, I'm just gonna play knight takes. I'm down by a pawn and I'm down on the clock. I was just about to say I'm gonna have to start playing fast to flag him, but I'm also down on the clock. So I'm still gonna play fast though. I mean I'm not too far down on the clock. Anything could still happen. Okay. Very principled. He didn't take. He played this move instead. So that way if I takes, then his rook takes. And then if I check, he's still able to block with the rook. Takes, knight takes, then I'm losing this. And if I move this, I lose this. What the heck is this position? Pawn c5 doesn't work. Okay, maybe it's time to take on b4. Yeah, things are getting very tricky. Pawn push, there's knight back. Takes, rook takes, knight b6, takes, queen takes, and then knight takes. Okay, that doesn't work. Yeah, let's do that. Takes. Rook takes, knight b6. Not a 4, because the bishop is able to take. But now at least I have some activity. First glance, it looks like he's able to take with the knight, but he can't. But now I need to figure out what happens if he takes with the rook. If he takes with the rook and I check, he's still able to block. And then I take this with check. King takes. No, that doesn't work. Queen back. Still down by a pawn. Ooh, pawn push. What is this? Because I have very nice control over f2. So if I'm able to hit him with this move, I hit the knight. He's gonna play this move though. Ooh, that's so strong. And then he's hitting my bishop and my queen. At that point, maybe I have to sack, king takes. Okay, that's a huge threat. Push rook here, and then the queen can't protect the bishop. Ooh, time. Takes, king takes, push rook here, takes, king takes. All right, let's do it anyways. I'm just gonna do it anyways. So rook to d6, forks the queen and the bishop, but his knight is still hanging at the end of the day. So queen e8, he takes, I take, and then after he takes, okay, his pawns are doubled. Or I takes, king takes, go back. Yeah, that's probably a bit too risky. It's probably a bit too risky. I have less than a minute on the clock. Everything is going wrong here. All right, he didn't take. He moves the knight. All right, let's go here, hit the rook. We have to play fast. Knight here is not necessarily a move. Rook here is a move. Oh, rook here is that's a real move. Whoa, this is now hanging. Okay, let's try this. Apply pressure here. Knight takes is also a move. Rook to d8 is an idea. Pin the knight to the queen. My knight on b8 is still not doing anything, guys. It's crazy. The plan is to take the knight and then grab the rook. I have 44 seconds on the clock. He has 15 seconds more than me. Okay, knight here was played. Now I go here, threaten this and this and this. Love this. No. No, I'm at. Oh, wait. By the way, guys, I can't play queen takes because after queen takes, that's mate. So he plays here. If I takes, I mated, and if I take here, I mated. Takes, check, I mated. Takes, check, I mated. So we have to take here. King moves, check, king up. Oh my god, this is also a threat. Check, grab, still can't take. Oh, 15 seconds, bro. What the heck? That looks like a fork, though. Good. We got him. Good, we're ahead by a piece. But we only have 10 seconds. That's a rook, bro. Come on, lock in. Ah, how did we win this game? This guy played so well. It's crazy. Now I'm just gonna sacrifice so that way it's easier for me to pre-move. 'Cause I only have 3 seconds on the clock. Come on, man. More NIMZO Indian against 2000 level players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 2000. Let's play some more NIMZO Indian. And we definitely need to be faster and stronger. Now we're seeing knight f3. Now, this is the Boga Indian defense, and I will be covering both of these in the theoretical video in the membership section. After they go bishop to d2, that's where I'm going to go queen to e7 and protect the bishop, because if they take on b4, queen takes b4, and we're winning a pawn. Now that they play a3, we have to take on d7. Let's get the king out the center, and we're going to be using the same plan, which is to play pawn d6, followed by playing pawn to e5, and already I'm threatening a fork on e4. So he took, let's take back, and then he played e4. Okay, so the thing about e4 is he's weakening the d4 square, and I'm definitely seeing a knight going on d4 in the future. I want to go rook to d8, but I kind of want to use this rook, to be honest. So let me just focus on development. Maybe bishop g4, then put this rook on d8. So that way all my pieces are coordinating together. So he castled, we go bishop to g4, and now I'm pinning this knight, and the position is not that closed. So let's not give up the bishop for the knight. Let's just keep the bishop. Still want to play rook to d8. In some cases, knight to d4. He's getting his rook in the game, playing pretty fast as well. Let's get my rook in the game, and I'm trying my best not to be too slow. Queen c2 is a good move, protecting the bishop. All right. Maybe he wants to play b4. So let's go with a5. This is a prophylactic move. And by the way, guys, if you're still watching up to this point, please remember to hit that like button. You're among like the only 5% of persons who still watch this far, and I'm really trying to get to 1,000 likes this video. Okay, so he plays rook e1, and now I'm going to play rook d7. I want you guys to know how I could have played rook to e8, but I prefer rook to d7 so that way I can double up both of the rooks on the d file because it's the only file that is really open. All right, he pulls the bishop back. Now we still double up on the d file. Eventually, I'm sure I'm going to have a very strong piece on d4. And I have I have such a nice idea. I don't know how possible it is, but I'm going to work towards it. Well, I mean, he's kind of making it easier for me. The whole idea was this: give up the bishop for the knight, so that way his light squared bishop isn't really active here, and then find a way to get this knight on the d4 square. And then once his knight takes and I take, I have the superior minor piece. And I think I call it having an eternal knight. Now, the thing about this position is I want to play a5, which I will, but one thing I don't like about a4 is once he moves the knight, my pawn is now just, come on, bro. Why would you put the, oh, he had to put the knight there because my position is way stronger than it seems. There's also knight d4, and if he takes, I take, double up them pawns. This is winning. Knight d4. Well, let's not say winning. If he takes on a4, then it's winning. His knight on a1 will eventually come to c2 and eliminate my knight. But from a strategic perspective, black is just completely winning here, strategically, because I have the knight, and in this particular position, the knight is better than the bishop because his pawns are on light squares. So his bishops are not able to navigate the position. And my knight is also sitting on a weakness. He did take the pawn. Now we take, and I want you guys to notice how his king is now exposed. How will this guy not get checkmated here? Like, because we're on the 2000 rated game, I want you guys to try to look on this position, try to figure out what the plan is before I tell you guys. But my plan is to start to target all of these weaknesses. So I'm going to hit him with knight h5. The knight is now heading to the f4 square. Once my knight gets to f4, the plan is to go queen g5, and he will be getting checkmated on g2. Remember we spoke about focal points, guys? It's like one of the topics that I stress in my book. So rook to d1, we go knight to f4. I'm already threatening checkmate. The book is finished, by the way, guys. I'm still formatting the book, like how you guys see the book and so on. I actually have two of the same book, and I'm trying to think about which one of these is going to be best, for the viewer experience. But yeah, already I'm threatening checkmate here. And I'm really not seeing how he's going to get out of it. He decides to take the rook, which means the game is finished, guys. This is just checkmate in two. We check on g5. The king has to move, and it doesn't really matter where he moves the king. That's going to be a checkmate. Remember to like the video, guys. That's just a checkmate.